Okay, so let's just take a deep breath and look at the calendar on the wall. It is Monday, January 19th, 2026.
Yeah, a date that feels pretty ordinary on the surface, but I have a feeling we might look back at this exact week as, well, a real pivot point.
Absolutely. And if you have been following our recent series, you know exactly where we are right now. We are deep in this timeline of you have 5,000 days. We're walking that path that Brian Rimmel laid out, the one navigating the end of work as we know it.
Right. And for anyone just jumping in, or maybe if you just need a quick reorientation, because let's be honest, things are moving so fast, we aren't talking about the apocalypse here.
No,
This isn't a doom-and-gloom terminator-style robot takeover. What we're talking about is the hero's journey. We are firmly in what Joseph Campbell would call the call to adventure.
exactly. The ordinary world. You know, that world where you had a 9 to 5, stared at a spreadsheet all day and came home exhausted. That world is dissolving behind us. We're stepping into something new. The call has officially been rung.
And when you're on a journey like that, when you're navigating a forest you've never been in before, it really helps to have a map or, at least a compass.
And that is precisely what dropped just 4 days ago. On January 15th, Anthropic released their latest economic index report. And let me tell you, this isn't just another dry stack of spreadsheets or some consultant's guess about what might happen in 2030.
No, this is different. It's a signal flare fired from right where we stand right now in January 2026.
It really is. I spent my entire weekend just poring over this thing, highlighting sections, and frankly, just staring at some of the charts in disbelief. It feels different than the reports we saw back in 2024 or even early 2025. This isn't speculation anymore.
They have the data.
They have the data. They have privacy-preserving analysis of 1 million consumer conversations and 1 million enterprise logs. And this is all from November 2025.
And that's such a crucial piece of context. We're not looking at a survey where people are saying what they think they do. We're looking at a digital footprint of what the world is actually doing with these tools, specifically with Cloud Sonnet 4.5 right this minute.
So the mission of this deep dive is to take that hard data and overlay it directly onto our 5,000-day timeline.
We want to see, are we on track with Romel's prediction? And ideally, we want to pull out these specific signals of how jobs are changing this week, not next year.
Because there's a word in this report that just stopped me in my tracks. We're always talking about upskilling. Everyone says, oh, you just need to upskill to survive the AI wave.
Right, that's the mantra.
This report introduces the concept of deskilling.
Yeah, that is a loaded term. It triggers a lot of defensive mechanisms in people.
It really does. And we need to unpack it because it sounds scary. But in the context of the hero's journey, it might just be the transformation we've been waiting for. So we're going to look at the velocity of complexity, this mind-bending idea of a 19-hour feedback loop, and the rise of what Anthropic is calling economic primitives.
It's a whole new way of measuring the heartbeat of this new economy. And frankly, the numbers are absolutely staggering. So let's open up the map.
Let's do it. I want to start with speed because the first thing that just leaps off the page in this report is the section on speed up versus complexity. Now, intuitively, if I give you a harder task, it should take you longer, right? Or at the very least, the AI shouldn't be able to speed it up as much as it does a simple task.
That would be the conventional wisdom. Yeah, that's the linear industrial age way of thinking. You'd think, okay, automation is for the easy stuff, the rote, repetitive, low-level tasks. You automate the factory floor, not the boardroom.
Right.
But the data here just flips that completely on its head.
Completely. The report categorizes tasks by the level of education required to do them. So let's look at the baseline. Tasks that require a high school education, so about 12 years of schooling, are being sped up by a factor of 9.
A factor of 9.
Which, let's just pause on that for a second. That's already huge. Imagine doing a full day's work in just an hour.
9 times faster is incredible. I mean, that's a productivity revolution all on its own, but that's not even the headline. Look at the next tier. Look what happens when the work gets harder.
Right. This is the part that gets me. Tasks that require a college degree, so 16 years of schooling, the classic knowledge worker class, those tasks are being sped up by a factor of 12.
Let that sink in for a moment. The more complex the intellectual labor, the greater the acceleration that the AI provides. They're calling it the velocity of complexity.
It's so counterintuitive. Why is the harder stuff getting faster? You'd think the AI would struggle more with the really complex topics, not less.
Because that's where the most friction is for humans. I mean, think about your own workday. If you're doing a complex white-collar task like, say, legal analysis, high-level coding, strategic planning, the work isn't usually the physical act of typing.
No, not at all.
The real work is the synthesis.
Yeah.
It's holding 20 different variables in your head at once. That is cognitively expensive for a human brain. We burn a ton of glucose just doing that.
We get tired, we lose the thread, you have to go get a coffee, you come back, you reread what you just wrote, and you try to load all that context back into your working memory.
Exactly. I love the term cognitive viscosity. It's like you're trying to run through mud. But for a model like Claude Sonnet 4.5, and certainly for the new Opus 4.5, that cognitive load is basically negligible.
The AI doesn't get tired.
It doesn't get tired. It doesn't need to reload the context. The context is mathematically present in its attention mechanism. So when you apply AI to these high human capital tasks, you aren't just making the typing faster. You're removing the very friction of complex thought. You're greasing the gears of intellect itself.
So the muddy road just became a paved superhighway.
Precisely. And this aligns perfectly with the whole end-of-work thesis we've been discussing. The work that is being accelerated the fastest, and so potentially displaced or transformed, is the very work we spent the last 50 years telling everyone they needed to get a degree to do.
Wow. Yeah.
We built an entire educational system on the premise that complex cognitive tasks were the safe harbor. And now, the data is showing the water level in that harbor is rising faster than anywhere else.
But, okay, we have to look at the other side of this coin, because speed is great, but if I'm driving a Ferrari 200 miles an hour straight into a wall, that's not exactly helpful. The report notes something really interesting about success rates, too. You have to ask, okay, it's 12 times faster, but is it good?
Right. Is it just fast and wrong? Because fast and wrong is just efficient chaos. That doesn't help anyone.
Well, there is a slight dip. The data shows that tasks requiring a high school education have about a 70% success rate.
Okay.
Tasks requiring a college degree have a 66% success rate.
So it is slightly harder for the AI. The complexity does take a small toll on the accuracy.
Marginally, though. It's a 4% difference.
But think about that trade-off.
Yeah.
You are accepting a tiny 4% drop in immediate success rate in exchange for a 1,200% increase in speed.
The math on that is just, it's undeniable. If I can do the task 12 times in the time it used to take me to do it once, I can afford to check my work. I can afford to generate 10 different variations, throw away 9 of them, and keep the best one, and I'm still finished before lunch.
And that is the key. That is the engine that's driving the change in our 5,000-day timeline. We are seeing the removal of the time tax on intelligence. If you're a knowledge worker in 2026, your value is no longer about how long it takes you to figure something out, because the machine can do that heavy lifting in seconds. Your value is shifting. It's moving to verification and selection.
Which brings us to the second, and I think maybe the most fascinating part of this whole report. Because if the machine provides the speed, what does the human provide? And this leads us to the concept of task horizons, or as I've been calling it, the 19-hour feedback loop.
Oh, this was the finding that made me literally sit up and reread the page. I actually thought it had to be a typo at first.
So let's set the scene here. There's a benchmark called MEPR. It's a very standard, rigorous way of testing how long an AI can work on a single problem before it, loses the plot.
Right, before it starts to drift.
Exactly. And according to the METR benchmark, Claude Sonnet 4.5 has about a 50% success rate on tasks that last for about 2 hours.
Okay, 2 hours. After 2 hours of continuous context thinking, processing, generating, it starts to hallucinate or forget the original instruction. That's the benchmark. That's the lab setting.
But then Anthropic looked at their actual real-world data. They looked at the API logs. So this is businesses building apps on top of Claude. And there, the success rate holds up for tasks lasting about 3.5 hours.
A little better? In the same ballpark, though?
Better, but yeah, same ballpark. But then they looked at Claude.ai, the consumer interface, the chat box that you and I use, the place where a human is sitting at the keyboard interacting with it.
Okay.
And on Claude.ai, the duration for a 50% success rate extends to roughly 19 hours.
19 hours.
Not a typo. That is a massive discrepancy. The benchmark says 2 hours. The real-world human usage says 19. Why? What are we doing that's so different from the benchmark?
This is the hero's journey in action, right here. This is the difference between a tool and a partner. The benchmark is static. It gives the AI a task and says, go. It's like firing an arrow. Once it leaves the bow, you can't change its course.
But on Claude.ai, there's a human in the loop.
The feedback loop.
Feedback loop.
Exactly. We break complex tasks into smaller steps. We don't just say, write me a novel. We say, okay, here's an outline. Now write chapter 1. That tone is a little off. Can you fix this paragraph? Great. Now write chapter 2 based on that change. We are constantly correcting its course along the way.
We're dancing with the machine.
That's a beautiful way to put it. We are providing the executive function. The AI has this incredible raw processing power, but the human has the intent and the situational awareness. The human provides the continuity of consciousness. The AI provides the raw horsepower. And together, they can sustain a task for 19 hours that the AI would completely fail at in 2 if it were left alone.
This is just huge for our listeners, because if you're sitting there right now wondering, how do I survive the next few years? How do I navigate these 5,000 days? This is the answer. The skill is not just prompting anymore. The skill is maintaining the thread.
It is the single biggest mental adjustment required for this phase of the journey. Success is no longer pushing a button and walking away. Success is engaging in a multi-hour or even a multi-day feedback loop. You have to be the conductor. The AI is the orchestra. And that orchestra can play incredibly fast, but if you put down your baton, they're eventually going to play out of tune.
So, in the call to adventure, this is our first real trial. Learning how to extend that horizon.
Yes. And the report also mentioned selection bias here, which I think is kind of funny, but also very true. It says users are bringing tasks to the AI that they know or are at least pretty confident will work.
Right, we're not asking it to do impossible things.
They're learning what the tool is good at. We aren't asking it to do things that we know will break it immediately.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the adoption curve. We were figuring out the boundaries.
But the fact that those boundaries are stretching all the way out to 19 hours suggests that for a lot of people, the AI limits are starting to dissolve. If you can guide it, it can go the distance.
And just think about the implication for the timeline. If you can maintain a high-complexity task for 19 hours with that 12x AI speed, the sheer amount of work you can accomplish is staggering. This isn't just a 12x speed-up on a single task. This is 12x speed-up compounded over 2 full workdays of continuous operation.
Wow.
That is how you get to the end of work as we know it.
Oh.
That is how you get the one-person unicorn company.
Okay, so we have speed and we have endurance, as long as you have a human pilot. Now we have to talk about the destination. Or maybe how the terrain itself is changing under our feet. This brings us to the Deskilling paradox.
Ah, yes. This is the section that deals with the future of work most directly, and it deals with our egos.
It really does. It asks a very provocative question. Does AI cover the high-skill parts of your job or the low-skill parts?
And once again, the data is surprising. The report finds that Claude covers tasks requiring an average of 14.4 years of education.
An associate's degree level, basically.
Effectively, yes. Now compare that to the economy-wide average for tasks, which is 13.2 years. So, Claude is punching above the average weight. It is actively targeting tasks that require higher education.
And this is what leads them to use the term deskilling. The report says, and I'm quoting here, as a first-order effect, this would deskill jobs on average, since it would remove those higher education tasks.
Right, let's unpack that, because deskilling sounds like we're all going to become button pushers. It sounds like a demotion. You know, I went to school for 6 years to learn how to do this, and now my job is deskilled.
It's a very loaded term, but in economic terms, it means something very specific. If your job consists of 10 tasks, and the 5 hardest ones, the ones that required you to go to college, the ones that were the barrier to entry, are now done by the AI, then the remaining job description technically requires less formal skill.
The report explicitly lists some professions here: technical writers, travel agents, teachers, and radiologists.
Radiologist is such a classic example. A huge part of that job is visual pattern recognition. Is this spot a tumor or just a shadow? That takes years and years of training for a human to get right.
And AI can do it almost instantly and arguably more accurately. So if you take that core task away, what is left for the radiologist to do?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? Is the radiologist now deskilled, or are they freed?
And this is the reframe. This is why we keep saying this isn't about doom. It's about the transformation phase of the monomyth. We are shedding old skins. If the AI handles the associate's degree level cognitive load, the pattern recognition, the technical drafting, the lesson planning, the human is freed up for something else.
Higher level synthesis. Or empathy. Strategy.
Exactly. The report notes that even if AI automates these specific tasks, the labor market will dynamically adjust. We aren't just going to sit there and do nothing. We will find other skills.
Other skills. I really like that phrase. It's not just upskilling, which usually implies learning more technical stuff, more coding. It might be side skilling or deep skilling. into things that machines are just fundamentally bad at.
Right. Think about the teacher. If the machine is the technical expert, creating the personalized lesson plan for every student and grading the calculus homework, the human teacher becomes the guide, the counselor, the strategist.
The mentor.
For the teacher, maybe it means less time grading papers and planning curriculums, which the AI now does, and more time sitting one-on-one with a student who's struggling with motivation. Is that deskilled? Technically, maybe, because you don't need a PhD in subject matter expertise to encourage a child. But is it less valuable?
I would argue it's infinitely more valuable. That's the human connection.
It is. But we have to be honest with ourselves. It's a disruption. It changes the identity of the worker. If your whole identity was, I'm the person who knows all the technical details, and the machine now knows them better than you have to find a new identity. That is the crisis part of the hero's journey.
Who am I if I'm not the one holding all the knowledge?
Precisely. And the answer is, you are the one wielding the knowledge. You are the director.
It reminds me of the shift from, say, an artisan to an architect. You aren't laying every single brick anymore. You're designing the entire cathedral.
And that shift is happening right now, today. The report mentions technical writers. That used to be a very specific, skill-taking, complex engineering specs and turning them into readable manuals. Now, the AI can do the first draft in seconds. The human becomes the audience advocate, checking if the tone is right, if the logic flows for a real person.
So the big mental adjustment we need to make is to stop defining our worth by the hardness of the tasks we perform.
Yes. In the 5,000 days timeline, hardness is no longer a proxy for value. Connection, direction, and synthesis. Those are the new proxies for value.
I love that. Okay, let's zoom out for a second. We've looked at the individual worker. Now I want to look at the world. Section 4 of our deep dive covers the global adoption curve, because this isn't happening the same way everywhere.
No, not at all. And the divergence is fascinating. Anthropic found a very strong correlation with GDP per capita.
So in high GDP countries, places like the US, the UK, Japan, people are using AI for work and for personal use. It's a pretty balanced split. We ask it to help us code, and then we ask it to help us plan dinner.
But in lower GDP per capita countries, there's a massive spike in one specific category: educational coursework.
It makes perfect sense when you think about it. If you're in a developing nation, your primary drive is to close the gap, to gain literacy, to acquire skills. The AI is the ultimate tutor. It's the student phase of the journey.
It's the democratization of an Ivy League education.
Whereas in wealthier nations, we are already seeing the master or even the post-work phase beginning to emerge. We're using it to code, sure, but we're also using it to plan our vacations, to write wedding toasts, to organize our personal lives.
The report highlights this partnership with the Rwandan government and a training provider called ALX. They're giving all their graduates Claude Pro. And the explicit goal is to help them transition from learning to doing, to move from that educational use case to broad application in the real world.
It's like jump-starting the Industrial Revolution, but for the mind. Instead of building factories, they're building cognitive capacity.
It is. And here in the U.S., we're seeing a different kind of equalization happening. The report notes that AI usage is becoming much more evenly distributed across all the states. It used to be heavily concentrated in California and New York, the coastal tech hubs.
Right.
Now, that curve is flattening out.
Their prediction is that usage will be pretty much equalized across the entire country within just 2 to 5 years.
Which aligns perfectly with the 5,000 days timeline. By the time we reach the end of this decade, this won't be tech bro stuff anymore. It'll be like electricity. It will be everywhere, for everyone. A rancher in Montana will be using it just as much as a toter in San Francisco, just for completely different things.
And as it becomes everywhere, the way we use it is also changing. We touched on this with the feedback loop, but there's a kind of battle going on right now between automation and augmentation.
The battle for the workflow. Yes, this is the critical tension point right now.
The data from Claude.ai shows that at this moment, augmentation is winning. 52% of conversations are augmentation, collaborating, refining, working together.
Okay.
45% are automated, basically, just do this for me.
So it's a narrow lead for augmentation. And the report does note that the long-term trend year over year shows automation slowly rising.
And they specifically mention a rise in what they call directive use. People are delegating tasks entirely. They aren't saying, help me write this. They are saying, write this.
This connects directly back to our discussion on Player Piano, Kurt Vonnegut's novel, about a world where the machines do everything. We are currently in the sweet spot. We're in the augmentation sweet spot where we feel like superheroes. We have bionic arms, but the tide of automation is rising. As the models get better, and remember, this data is from before Opus 4.5 really took hold, the temptation to just hand over the keys becomes stronger and stronger.
It's the path of least resistance. I mean, if I can get a 12x speed up by collaborating, maybe I can get a 100x speed up by just delegating the whole thing.
Exactly. And that is the danger zone, because if you delegate everything, you lose that human-in-the-loop advantage we were just talking about. You lose the 19-hour horizon. You risk becoming a spectator in your own life.
And that is where that personal use category becomes so interesting. In rich countries, that category is growing fast. If work becomes automated, do we just spend more and more time using AI to manage our leisure, to manage our lives?
Which brings us to the metrics. How do we even measure an economy where work is disappearing, but value is increasing?
Section 6, Economic Primitives. Anthropic is trying to measure this massive change with entirely new metrics because, let's face it, GDP just doesn't cut it anymore.
And thank goodness they are. We've been flying blind for a couple of years. They introduced 5 primitives: task complexity, skill level, purpose, AI autonomy, and success. It's a framework for trying to measure the intangibles, trying to put a number on thought.
And their projection for productivity based on this is significant. They estimate that U.S. labor productivity growth could increase by 1.2 to 1.8 percentage points per year.
And to put that in context for everyone, that would return us to the glory days of the late 1990s and early 2000s. The internet boom, that is a massive injection of wealth and capacity into the economy. That is the difference between a stagnant society and a truly booming one.
But there's a huge caveat here, right? This data is based on Sonnet 4.5.
That's the one. Correct.
Okay.
The report explicitly says these numbers do not account for models becoming significantly more powerful, and they specifically mention the release of Claude Opus 4.5, so this 1.8% figure. It might be the floor, not the ceiling.
The upside risk.
Exactly. If Opus 4.5 is a genuine step function improvement, and all the early reports suggest that it is, then the speed-up factors, the success rates, the deskilling effects, they all accelerate. The timeline compresses. The 5,000 days might end up happening in 3,000.
That is just a staggering thought. So to bring this all back to where we started, it's January 19th, 2026. We're on the 5,000 days path, and we have a report that says complexity is speeding up, not slowing down. We have a report that says the barrier to entry for high-skill tasks is collapsing. And we have this feedback loop that rewards patience and direction over raw execution.
We are leaving the ordinary world. That is the big takeaway here. The world where skill meant years of memorizing facts is gone.
It's dissolving right in front of us. And I think for our listener, the call to adventure is to accept that shift.
Don't fear the deskilling. That's my advice. Don't look at the fact that an AI can do your technical writing or your lesson planning as a theft. Look at it as a liberation. But, and this is the big but, you have to embrace the 19-hour feedback loop.
You have to be willing to sit with the machine, to guide it, to correct it, to be the human in the loop.
The skill of the future is direction and synthesis. It is not execution. The machine executes. You direct.
And if you can make that mental adjustment, you aren't just surviving the next 5,000 days, you are thriving in them. You're the one surfing the wave instead of being crushed by it.
You become the hero of the journey.
I want to leave everyone with one final thought, a little bit of a provocation based on that global data we talked about.
Let's hear it.
The report showed that as countries get richer, they shift from education and work to personal use. We see that happening in the US and UK data right now.
Right, the life category.
So if we project this out to the end of the 5,000 days, if productivity skyrockets, if the work tasks are automated or deskilled to the point of being trivial, are we preparing for an economy where our primary relationship with AI isn't about working at all?
You mean, does personal use become the dominant use?
Exactly. Are we heading toward a world where the AI is primarily a tool for living? For creativity, for connection, for planning our experiences?
That is the ultimate destination of the monomyth, isn't it? The return with the elixir, the boon that restores the world. If the boon is time, and the AI gives us all that time back, then yes, the destination isn't better work, it's life after work.
Something to mull over as you start your week. We will be back soon to track the next steps on this map. Until then,
Keep the feedback loop open.
see you in the future.